Hey, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about how we installed the roof on the Model A Huckster, as well as the headliner that we ended up using. And we're going to talk about how we spray painted this car with some very basic stuff right here in the driveway. So let's get into today's video. So one of the things that we did with the Huckster roof is we actually installed a headliner. Now the headliner material is indoor-outdoor furniture fabric material that I found online, and I really liked the idea that it had a rubberized backing. Although it isn't waterproof, it is highly water resistant, and I really liked the idea of putting that down not only for the inside of the cab. It made kind of a darker roof and gave it that nice contrast that I was looking for with the wood and the roof. And instead of allowing the white backing of the roofing material to show through, and over a couple of years of use probably start to get whitish, grayish, or brownish, or whatever, I just felt that a very dark fabric as an underlay would hold up and look nice over time. And so I'm really happy with how that looks. So how we installed that was essentially we laid it over the roof first and then stapled it into place. And we'll show you how we did that, as well as moving the vehicle back outside and putting the roof fabric on and letting it sit out in the sun for several hours before we ended up stretching it and putting it on. And you'll see how we did that too. So let's take a look at that. Now here is how we did our staples. We spaced them out about every 3 inches. This is the rubberized portion actually fitting upwards. And then we got our cotton batting that just kind of lays over everything that you see there. And then our vinyl roof material just kind of stretches over. And this really does make a nice, soft looking vinyl top. So one of the things that I discovered when I put the cotton batting on is I probably should have trimmed it right to the edge of the wood like I did the headliner. Unfortunately, I didn't do that, so it's made a real nightmare as far as cleaning up all of that fabric from cutting it. And if I had it all over to do again, I would have trimmed that right to the edge of the roof line and stopped it right there, and I wouldn't have had to worry about any of that fabric kind of leaching out, if you will, as I stretch the roof out. Is what it is. Just takes a lot of time to clean it up. So just a little tip there that I wanted to share as we continue putting on the roof. Now it is almost 90 degrees outside today, and it is really stretching out this fabric really, really nice. I keep coming out and just kind of move the fabric, snug it up a little bit, and using these clamps to just kind of hold things in place. Really like how it looks on the top. The padding is really, really nice, and really excited about that. I did have to do a little bit of minor work up here. Our slats came all the way to the end, and we had a gap down here, and I really didn't care for the gap, so I had to very carefully insert small wood strips, and that evened things out so that we don't have this slat and then a gap between the slat and then up, and then another slat and a gap between the slat. You really saw that, and putting those strips in really made a difference. All right, so we got it inside. It is so hot out, so I apologize for just being so sweaty, but it's brutal. And so anyhow, it's been sitting outside for 4 hours. The vinyl is nice and soft. It's really stretched. I don't think I can stretch it much more. And we're going to start stapling it to the top side rails and the front and back bows. I made myself a little jig. So what we're going to do is actually just kind of follow the roof line get our staple gun right up next to here so that we've got a nice row of staples all the way across. Now this is 5/8 here. I got it screwed on, just a temporary jig. When I get done with this, I'm going to unscrew it, set it to 7/8, and that's going to be my cut line. So again, when I get it here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I get it up here on the top of the roof. It'll ride on the roof, and I'll just put my razor blade right along this as I very carefully bring this all the way across the roof, and that'll give us a nice, smooth, straight staple line as well as a cut line. And then we can put our hide-em welt on and hide all of that. So really excited, because once the roof is on, I'm gonna think that, okay, we've got a vehicle that's really starting to really shape up and look like a vehicle. Now I'm gonna start in this corner right here and just set our jig up just like you see here. This is kind of already snug. We're gonna put a couple of staples right here about 3 inches apart. 1, 2, 3, get that third one in there. Then we're gonna go to the other side and do the same thing where we get 3 more staples in this corner, and that's gonna set this corner. Then I'm gonna go to the other corner and pull it as tight as I can, give it really, really a good grip using our jig. Again, set some staples into the front bow, and then I'm just gonna check and make sure that everything is still looking good. And then we can start going around the vehicle and pulling it nice and snug, going across each side and getting that roof nice, tight, and flat. All right, this gets us our corner. Now we're gonna go to the front. All right, so I just took off my handy dandy Harbor Freight El Cheapo clamps, and I'm gonna give this a really good hard tug, set our jig up here, and get our staples in. Get one right here in this corner. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. Then we're going to go up top and just check and see how the top looks, see if there's any wrinkles we need to take out, see if there's any shifting we need to do. It's a lot easier to, if I have to pull these out and redo something, now's the time to actually do that. So we're gonna go up top, just kind of take a peek. Alrighty, from the front of the car, and I apologize for the glare, there is really no bulges, no wrinkles, nothing. Got the fabric really nice and straight. Line looks all the way good in the back. I think we're good to go at this juncture. This is looking really, really good. As you're stapling along, occasionally you're going to get a bad staple. It's just not going to go in on both sides, or not going to go in at all, or give you a little doodad like you see right there. Get up a little closer. Pull that out. Don't leave it in there. Don't try to beat it in. Pull it out. There's no sense in trying to save it. I got about maybe a half a dozen or so that I had to pull out. This being one example. So something thin like this obviously isn't white oak. This is just really a paint stir strip that I got at Sherwin-Williams. But you get the idea. This is about as wide as the Hyde welt that you currently see. And if I were to back up, that's kind of the way it would look. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, do we just leave the Hyde welt on, or do we kind of dress it up a little bit and cut some really thin white oak like you see and put that up on the roof? Personally, I like the wood finish, but love to hear your thoughts. Now that's going to sum it up for the roof. Let's go next into painting and what we did there.
Now when it came time to painting the Model A, I got to tell you, it's been over 30 years since I've painted a car. And the last time I did that, it was with lacquer paint. So that should kind of tell you how long it's actually been. And when I shot lacquer, I understood the importance of, you know, having two different guns, a primer gun and an actual paint gun. But shooting lacquer was a whole different ball game. And so what I was looking at when I chose paint guns, prior to that, I used to shoot with a Banks, but again, 30 years ago, the technology has changed both in guns as well as paint. And so I made a conscious decision that I wanted to find a halfway decent paint gun, but I didn't want to spend $1,000 for a paint gun for pretty much a job that was going to be a one and done for me. And so I opted to go with a very inexpensive gun to shoot primer. That's a Harbor Freight gun. It was the cheapest gun that they had, and it actually came with that regulator. And this gun here, I actually got at Amazon, and it was based on a lot of reviews from a guy on YouTube called Paint Society. Now, you can look up his full review. I'll put a link down in the description for his gun review, as well as the Amazon link that I purchased the gun from. Now, I don't get any money from Amazon, and I don't get any affiliate money from that. You know, we're honestly, it's through your subscriptions and your donations. That's how I get paid. So I pay for these guns. They're not given to me. And so anyhow, I was absolutely impressed with a $100 paint gun. I was blown away at the quality of this gun. Now, if you see some red in there, I was so impressed with this gun that My daughter's Ford Ranger needed to be repainted on the hood. There was the clear coat was coming off, and I just took it down to metal and I shot the hood. And I got to tell you, I was blown away with the performance of this gun. Now, if you're curious as to whether I used single stage or dual stage paint, I know that you're going to have your feelings on the matter, but I chose single stage. And the reason why I chose single stage is, one, when these cars were originally painted, it was a single stage type of paint. Two, it's just easier to work with. I don't have to worry about, a base coat and a clear coat. And I got to tell you that if you lay down paint right and you take the time to color sand it and buff it, you will get an amazing shine. And I was very pleased with the results of both of these guns. Again, this is really kind of a throwaway gun. It's primer. I laid several coats of primer down and then color sanded or wet sanded that, and then did the introductory layer for paint, and then I applied 2 more layers of paint, and then color sanded that, and I was very pleased with the overall finish. It's been on the car now for about 4 months, and I don't see any signs of any paint lifting or anything like that. And that's how essentially I painted the vehicle with these 2 guns. Now, in the next series of pictures, you're going to see how I went about actually painting this in the driveway. Now, when it came time to actually painting the vehicle, I had to be really cognizant of my home. So what I mean by that is that I have an attached garage, if you haven't figured that out from videos that I've shot. And so with that in mind, there was just absolutely no way that I was going to paint the vehicle inside the garage. And so I had to come up with a solution. And I live here in East Tennessee. It can get quite hot. It can get quite humid. Last summer, the heat was just insane. And so trying to find that perfect day to lay down paint was a bit of a challenge. And so what I ended up doing was I picked up a 10 by 10 tent that a artist was actually selling. And it was just a easy up tent, had the sides, and I rigged it up as a temporary paint booth. And so what I did was I inserted a Ryobi fan at the top to kind of push the dust away from the fresh paint, and then I put a Ryobi fan on the floor, and that was used to push the paint dust and whatnot outside of the tent. And it gave me some circulation that I know I needed. I also wet the driveway down so that I wasn't kicking up any extra dust while I was spraying. One of the mistakes that I made was that when I mounted the body, I thought I'd have enough clearance to actually sneak the cowl out and paint the cowl separately. Fortunately, I primed the cowl before we actually mounted the body. But the body was already mounted, and yes, I could have loosened it up and moved it back out of the way and taken the cowl off and painted the cowl separately. But I just chose not to do that, and I was fortunate enough to have painted the inside of the cowl and firewall area before actually mounting the body. So I only had to contend with the exterior portion of the cowl. The same goes with the gas tank. I had painted the interior and the backside and the bottom portion of the gas tank, knowing that I had to paint the gas tank and the cowl as a unit, one unit together, because of the way that the factory originally mounted the gas tank into the cowl and the weather stripping and the Hydem, or that welt that goes around the gas tank. And so painted that assembly,
with the Model A sticking out, and it worked. I was actually quite impressed with how well that actually worked. And then when it came time to paint the fenders, the rear fenders, I did the same thing. The paint on the front fenders still seemed to be pretty good, and I didn't want to mess with that, and so I just made the decision not to. And when it came to the hood, I did the hood the way that you see how I painted the hood as well. And all of that worked out really well. Essentially, in 2 days, I had the cowl and the hood painted, and then on a third day, I had the rear fenders painted. And this setup actually worked, and I was very pleased with it, and I did it in as safe a way as I could. Obviously wore a mask and wore some sweatpants and a long sleeve shirt in 90-degree weather. That was a real nightmare. So, it was my homemade PPE, if you will, but it worked. Now, the reason why I didn't show any video footage of me actually spraying the car is, quite honestly, I didn't want to get overspray onto my camera gear and onto my tripods. And so you're looking at actual pictures instead of what I actually did. But you get the general idea of how I painted the car. And for the record, I was so impressed with this two-gun setup and temporary paint booth that my daughter's hood needed repainting, and I actually used the exact same setup and got beautiful results a second time. Be sure to check out these other Model A videos. Have a wonderful day, and most of all, y'all be blessed.